Greetings. Today I'm going to talk about the Smart Solar Charge Controller. It's a Victron unit that is taking the power from my solar panels and putting that power into my batteries in a way that doesn't break them. That's the non-technical explanation. So the power comes in these lines, 6 AWG gauge, goes through this breaker. It's a 60 amp breaker. It's turned on, and then it goes into the PV inlet, negative to negative, positive to positive, and then it comes out of the positive and negative battery side. You can see, and that goes up to the bus bars. Now you can see a bulk charging indicator light, and then there's a maintenance and then a float indicator light. We also have a cable that connects from the charge controller to the Servo GX, and that reports the data from this charge controller to the Servo GX, which we can then see on the screen, and we can see in the Victron web application and get all our data on how our system's operating. Now you can also connect to this charge controller over Bluetooth from your phone's Victron app, and that's what we're going to do today as well, because I haven't done that yet. So looking here, we can see the smart controller's status. We can see the yield from the last few days. Now it's winter and I live in a very shady area, so that's why those units are so low relative to my 800 watt system side. Okay, let's get the phone out and connect to this smart charge controller. Now to do this, I've gone ahead and taken a picture of the PUK code underneath the controller with my phone. And I've done this because when I try and connect, it gets to 80% and then it doesn't connect even when I type the default 6-digit code, which is 6 zeros. So we'll do that again and just walk through that workflow because it's not really well documented in the Victron documentation. So we got the app open and we're looking at all our broadcasting devices, and we'll scroll down until we see the one we want, which if it's powered on, it should be broadcasting. So we see that Smart Solar, and we click connecting, and on this Android it gets to 80% and then it fails. And you can see when it starts doing that handshake, the indicator lights start flashing, but then it just gets stuck at 80. So we need to execute the PUK workflow, and to do that we're going to go back, choose the 3-digit menu and click reset pin code, and that's where the PUK code comes in handy. So we've gotten the photograph of that code from under there, and then we've transcribed that onto our documentation, and we're going to put that right in. So we got it written right there. We're going to write it right in the app. Okay, so let's do that. And we're going to show the code on the screen so we can visually make sure it's the right one. So we're going to start with 1, and your code's going to be different. So if you try my code, it's not going to work for you. Foxtrot, Bravo, Charlie. You get the idea. 7, and we'll put the rest of these in. Double check before pressing OK, and then we can see the handshake going back and forth, and then a reset pin code workflow, which says to basically reboot everything and then try and get in from your device. So that's what we're going to do here. One thing I will add to that is that you need to make sure your phone's not Bluetooth connected to headphones or anything else it might default connect to. It's going to be much easier to connect to one thing at a time, and that thing needs to be the thing you're trying to connect to. So let's show that workflow. All right, after the phone reboots and we log in, we will open our Victron app again, try and connect, and as it's going through the connection process, when it gets to this 80% and it gets stuck, we swipe down from the top, click into our Bluetooth. We can see that there's no connected devices. We select see all and we search for the one we're looking for. and there's a lot broadcasting because we got a lot of Victron gear. And where is our device? Okay, we're gonna have to try this again. If first you don't succeed, reboot and try again. Make sure you got a good cup of coffee. Keep yourself going. So back at our device list, I'm scrolling down and I'm noting the exact name of the device and I believe that's a MAC address, but it's those numbers and characters next to the device name. And I'm writing that down in my documentation so I can search for it in the Bluetooth menu. So we're going back to Bluetooth and we can see other devices, but it looks like we still have a device paired. So we gotta turn that device off and then try this again after we reboot, of course. So we've gone through the second reboot process, opened up our app, we're connecting. It's not even getting to 80%. We can see the absorption indicator light on, and now we are, let's see what we can see. We're not paired to anything, and I can see the smart controller. I'm clicking into it. We're going to do the 6 zeros, and we're going to give it access to contacts and call history. Click OK, go back, and 20, 60, 80, 90. Hey, this is looking promising. And we're fetching the data. We have a connection. Boom. This is good. Okay. We got the unsecured access. You're going to want to change that default PIN so that other people don't get onto your system and mess with it. So that's the first thing I did after recording this video. And now I'm just reading what this says. So it needs to update firmware or software. So we'll go ahead and let it do that. And we can see the current version's 2.44, new version's 2.52. So let's get that updated and then see what we see. Once you get into these, the general workflow is for a new deployment, update everything, and because your latest firmware is going to generally be the most stable and have the newest, safest features, and then just audit all the settings and write down what those settings are. Write this stuff down as you go. Your documentation is very important for your configuration. All right, now that we shot through that update, we will continue into the new firmware, connect again. Now we're booting into the new firmware, and we're going to see if it has anything else for us. So we're just looking at our settings. We can see our voltage coming in for our panels. That looks correct, just under 20. And it looks like we have another update available. And this one is for the charge controller, which is currently at version 1. I think that's 5.9. We got to get it to 1.64. So we're going to update to this software, firmware. I use those terms interchangeably. I realize they're not the exact same, but for this talk, let's make them the same. So we can see our light pattern, why the firmware is writing to the controller. Very important not to turn off your device now or you will crash the OS. That's how these things work. Ask me how I know. And just like that, this firmware has been updated. All right, so now let's connect a third time and audit our settings. We just want to see where everything is and make sure we don't see anything that's out of the ordinary. Okay, so voltage coming in, that looks right. Let's click on our gear icon. Check our batteries. Okay, all that looks correct. Max voltage. Not really seeing anything on expert mode that we need to deal with because we have a pure Victron system from our batteries to our battery management system to the solar charge controller. So all this stuff should be able to talk to each other without expert mode. We shouldn't need to override any charging algorithms or anything. So we're not going to do that, but your system could and probably will be different than this one. So you're going to have to put your electrical engineering hat on and set your settings so that they are compatible and work well with your own system. So I'm just looking at what mine are and then writing them down. Okay, looking at our other settings, we have a load output. That looks fine. Nothing to change there. We will go back and then choose our next menu item, street light. Okay, we'll turn that on and just see what it says. We don't really need to change how this works with sunset, sunrise, because it's not a solar charge controller for a street light, which is what I believe this is. Victron's pretty good about calling things what they are. So I'm going to turn off street light mode, and we're not going to have it on street light mode. Okay, so now that that's back off, let's go to the next menu item, which is a TX port connection. I'm not going to do anything there. And the VE Smart Networking, we're not doing that either because we only have one module. If we had multiple modules, we could add multiple charge controllers and connect them over Bluetooth, and then they could all talk to this output app correctly. So now we can see our lifetime totals and our total since reset, which are at 2 kilowatt hours, which makes sense because this is a very new installation, and it's a winter installation where we get the least amount of solar gain hitting our panel array. So all things considered, we're good to go. We've connected to the app, reset the puck code. By resetting the puck code, we've updated everything, and then we've checked all the values and taken notes on everything. In any case, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you around.